I told myself I was not going to film this video until we got more information about Restore Me, but here we are. I have a blanket in case I need to cocoon myself in warmth. Also a pillow in case I need to pretend it's Warner and I can hug onto it like this. This has been my current mood for about the past 5 hours. This morning at 10 a.m., bright and early, we got the announcement that there were going to be 3, not 1, not 2, 3 new books in the Shatter Me series. Let's backstory a little bit. I have been a massive fan of Shatter Me since a while. I have written over 100,000 words of fan fiction that most takes place after Ignite Me has happened. So let's just say I might be a little bit of an expert on this topic. Although we only have like a 2-sentence synopsis of Restore Me, I wanted to go into what I think is gonna happen because I have so many predictions, so many unsolved things from Ignite Me, and just let's go. This is gonna be a long video. I'm so sorry. If you have not read the Shatter Me series, this is a great opportunity to turn off this video because there's gonna be hecka spoilers. So the synopsis of Restore Me starts out by saying Juliet and Warner are leading Sector 45, and then tragedy strikes. Juliet will be tested, leading her to see if she can use her ability to kill with a single touch after all. A lot of people are speculating what this tragedy is going to be. I have a couple of theories. First of all, I think it's really vital that I note this book is told in Warner and Juliet's perspective. I think there's a reason to this. I think that it is something that could be done just as a stylistic choice because I think Warner's perspective is so distinct from Juliet's voice, and like Tahereh said, they really balance each other out and you get to see more outside of Juliet's body. But we all know what the potential for disaster is when there are books that are told in dual perspective. So my first thought is she's getting abducted. So there's some sort of separation where we would have to see what's happening with one character and what's happening with another character because they're not in the same room. And I feel like this comes very naturally because at the end of Ignite Me, we had this whole scene where Juliet and Kenji go off to the ship to go get Anderson and everyone else stays behind at the base. What I was always concerned / annoyed with was we saw everything Juliet was doing, but what happened on the base? Like, we know there was some sort of fight between Anderson's soldiers and them, but they go back and they're all bloodied and tired and there's dead bodies. So like, we missed a lot by not having another perspective other than Juliet's. This is going to add a whole other layer to our cake. And I think majorly something that's gonna have to do with that is that, yeah, they're probably gonna get separated. Does Juliet get held hostage? Does Warner get hurt? Oh god, blanket, I need you. I don't want to think about Warner getting hurt. My hair is gonna be a mess this video just because I keep pulling that blanket over my head. Some people have mentioned like, oh, maybe it's her parents that come back that causes her to have that tragedy, which I don't think is really true because in Ignite Me she says to Warner like, I don't really want to have anything to do with my parents. They're not part of my life. I don't consider them my true family. Let's just not talk about them. So I feel like it won't revolve around her parents just because they weren't supposed to be part of her life anymore, you know? I also think that tragedy striking might be something along the lines of all the other sectors revolt against them because Juliet took over the Supreme Commander position, but there's 333 sectors in the country, the world, whatever. And they're 1 out of 333. So there's a huge possibility that someone else is gonna look at her and be like, you're 17 and you dropped out of school when you were 14. Like, what gives you the qualifications? So I'm anticipating that a lot of this book will be them having to rebattle people saying like, look, we are going for good things. Another thing is there's going to be some sort of new villain introduced. So Anderson's gone. Good news! The Witch of the West is dead. The wickedest witch that ever was. The enemy of all of us here in Oz is dead. That's all I think about when I think about Anderson dying. What was I talking about? Right, a new villain. So maybe this new villain comes into power and is trying to combat her and Warner, and that might even play into the fact that she gets kidnapped. But then the part that says it leads her to see if she can use her ability after all. Let's delve into Juliet's persona. She was so against touching people that she didn't even kill Anderson with her bare hands. And after I read Ignite Me, I was like, we went through all of this where she has this power and she can do this, but she decides to kill Anderson with a gun. Like, it would have been so significant if she would have touched him and killed him with her touch. Then I realized that was actually really symbolic of her growth, that even though she is faced with this person who has continually abused her and the people around her and the people that she loves, she still won't stoop to the level of having to touch them. So I think that it's gonna be really weird to see that she needs to start touching people and like what would cause her to do that. And that's why a lot of people are saying that Juliet is gonna have an evil sort of transformation, which I would be so dreading, because I love Juliet for her purity and for the fact that she wants to be a good person all the time. That's why she's one of my favorite characters of all time, because she's just such a cinnamon roll. But if she goes off on a rampage and like hurts people, like, I was so against that. But I was just talking to my friend Sasha, who I know is watching this. Hi Sasha. We were talking about this and she said it doesn't really seem like it would be in Juliet's personality for her to go evil. But then I remembered in Unravel Me, when she's holding the gun shooting Anderson's legs, she began to feel really powerful and ruthless. And do you remember that scene where she's just like, she didn't want to stop torturing him? She has that little nugget of, I don't want to say evilness in her, but there is a part of her that enjoyed other people's suffering, especially when she touches people, like with Jenkins and even with Adam. Sometimes she would touch them and feel their energy draining out of them, but that would fill her up. I'm really concerned that there's gonna come a time where she touches someone and realizes that feels good and become a worse person because of it, which would suck, and that would be like reversing all the progress that we've had. But again, I think that this is really contingent on the fact that it is going to be dual perspective. And something that Tahereh said about that really concerns me. She said, it's interesting and critical to the book to dive deep into their very different minds. I see why we would need dual perspective, especially if Juliet is going to become an unreliable narrator. That concerns me once again, because I don't think I'm gonna love it if Juliet becomes an unreliable narrator. Lastly, this interview says Juliet will undergo a great deal of heartache. What? You're telling me I waited 3 years for this moment and I'm gonna have to be crying while I read it? I couldn't even begin to guess what this means. Part of me anticipates it's because her parents are gonna come back into the story, which is something that Tahereh confirmed on Twitter. Her parents may or may not make an appearance again. I don't think it's going to be a massive appearance, and it might be something that causes heartache. You know what, but that heartache line alone kind of conflicts with the fact that she might be going evil. So that makes me question if whether or not that's actually gonna be a thing that happens, because would she be remorseful if she was too busy killing people? I don't think so. Hello Whitney, watching this from the future with all the answers figured out and laughing at myself. But Tahereh said she has no idea what she's gotten herself into. And this is really reminiscent of my thought that I think she's super unprepared to lead a country. I think the fact that she stood up and went, I'll lead everyone, and she's 17, she dropped out of school, she doesn't know anything. I don't know, I love her to death, but that's the one thing I couldn't click with, is I was like, she's not prepared to take this role on, and I think that that reflects what she has no idea what she's gotten herself into. Of course, you know, like Warner is a better leader than her just because he knows the system and he knows the deeds. And even though she probably has a better moral compass and is more able to empathize with constituents and stuff like that, I think that that's going to be a major reason why she's unprepared, and maybe a major reason why she kind of fails in that role. Again, I don't want to watch her fail, so I'm like, no. So that's everything the news article mentioned that I wanted to comment on. Next are the things that Tahereh has answered questions about from Twitter. So there's a lot of things that she discussed, but the ones that I'm concerned with are as follows. So first of all, we're getting new characters. Boy, this is probably one of the main things that I'm excited about, because one of the things that I felt was really missing was there was no focus on any characters other than the big three: Warner, Adam, Kenji. And there's presences of the others in there, but I never really got to feel like they were established characters very much other than the glimpses we saw of them. So like Brendan and Winston, loved them. Castle, loved him. But there wasn't really anyone that I could see Juliet befriending, and that's what I felt was missing. So the fact that we're getting new characters is beautiful. Also, that she confirmed there's gonna be POC and LGBTQIA characters. Boy, I'm living. I'm gonna become the most obnoxious person because people are gonna be like, what are some diverse book recommendations? I'm just gonna be like, Shatter Me by Tahereh Mafi. Even though the main characters are all white. I anticipate it's gonna be like The Host, where after everyone's heard them be like, we have powers, people are gonna start trickling in from the edges of the world and be like, I've had this power, I had no idea it was something other people had, I want to stay with you guys and be in a community of people like me. Like Juliet and Adam never knew about Omega Point. So I think there's gonna be a lot of new people pouring in just because there's all these people with powers. Like, Omega Point can't be the only people ever. But can you imagine all the undiscovered people and all the new cool powers? We might have shapeshifters, we might have firebenders, we might have people like but it would be so intriguing, and I'm just so excited that it's gonna be diverse. And Tahereh tweeted there's gonna be a new female friendship, which is something I've been dying for because I never really imagined any of the female characters from Omega Point as Juliet's friends. I know that Sarah and Sonia were really nice to her, but I couldn't really imagine them being best friends. Same with Lily and Aaliyah. They were friendly, but like I could never see them bonding and having that female connection between them that made me jealous. It was always just her and Warner, and that's it. And I think I was craving that female on female love, and we're getting it. Speaking of new characters, I am ecstatic to learn that Kenji might be getting a love interest. For the longest time, I argued that Kenji is straight because I read the books and I was like, no, he jokes around all the time about getting a girlfriend and he flirts with Juliet. But there's a line in Ignite Me where Juliet and him are talking about the idea of them being together, and Kenji says, "You're not my type." And that alone was the moment that I realized Kenji would make such a great bisexual. Literally everyone in this series is not straight to me. So my theories as follows. I envision Kenji as bisexual. I would love for him to have a little mans in the next book, but I mean, anything works. But I think I have this theory that like Juliet would walk in on him making out with another guy and Kenji would just look up and be like, I'm busy, 1 second. Like, that's so Kenji. I don't know, I can see it. And then I imagine Brendan is bisexual because him and Winston are totally getting it on. Just try and fight me about it. Try. I see Warner as being demisexual. I see Adam as being totally hella straight because let's be real, what a meninist. I would love to see more representation in this series, especially representation that she comes out and identifies in the text rather than leaving it up to interpretation. Speaking of Kenji's relationship, we're gonna learn a lot more about Kenji, meaning we're getting more Kenji backstory? What? I was always a little bit disappointed with the very few details we got about Kenji's life. I mean, we know the whole thing about the shopping cart and Castle finding him, but I want to know what happened before then. I'm so nosy. I wrote a fan fiction once that kind of went into what I thought happened with his family, but after I reread Ignite Me, I realized those details don't quite fit together. My prediction was that his power caused him to be a little bit outcasted by his family. They didn't understand it. They thought he was dead or possessed, or, you know, like your son starts disappearing. Like, are you going crazy, or does your son have magic abilities? So I envisioned that he was kind of cast out of his home and then one day went back home after a while living on the streets and realized his house had been bombed out. So that was kind of my backstory. It's flexible, it's not exactly what might have happened, but I envisioned him as an orphan. Learning what's gonna happen to him is so bizarre to me, and I don't think I can even talk about this next one, but more Warner backstory. I need the pillow. I need the pillow. I could hardly handle anything from Ignite Me and Unravel Me concerning his backstory, so I do not know how I will survive the rest of it. It talks about what Warner had to do in order to become the leader of Sector 45, which is like the #1 most unanswered question I have from any of the books in the series. It's so mysterious to me, I couldn't even give you a prediction. I think the closest prediction I have over what he had to do would be like killing or torturing or doing something with his mom. Not like in a gross or weird way, but like something personal. Because he's a sick person, you know that. I think that Warner would have to do something that would make him deeply uncomfortable just because Anderson is so sadistic. And his mom is something that was so personal to him that I think it's very possible that that could have been something. See, I can't even theorize what would happen because I'm like, I don't know and I don't want to think about it because I love him so much. But more Warner backstory. I'm sure, like, we got tiny details about him in Unravel Me as far as, like, he had baseball trophies in his bedroom as a child, so like he played baseball, and I'm like, did he go to school? Was he on a team? Did his mom inspire him to do the team? Because his dad probably wouldn't have made him do extracurricular sports, but like, was he a sports fan? Did he still like sports? How good does he look in baseball pants? It's all things that I want to know. Learning more about his childhood would be so heartbreaking. I know that everyone's first question is always, was he a virgin before he met Juliet? So I don't know if we're gonna learn about some past relationships he's had. And I'm really on the fence about that. Part of me feels like he could be unexperienced and Juliet was his first kiss and Juliet was his first everything else. But part of me also wonders, like, since he did go through the compounds very often, like, what if when he was like 15, 16, 17, like, could there have been something going on? I don't know. Oh my gosh, that makes me think of something else. Like, you know how in Heir of Fire, spoilers, Heir of Fire, Baby Queen of Shadows, spoilers for the Throne of Glass series, I'll annotate something here, and when this goes away it'll be over. So you know how in one of those Throne of Glass books the king discovers that Dorian likes Sorsha, and so he has Sorsha executed? It could have been something like that with Anderson. What if Warner did have someone he cared about, and then in order to prove himself, oh my gosh, that's making me trip myself out, because in Unravel Me he did the same thing where he was like, shoot her. What if he had to like execute someone he loved or watch someone he loved be executed in order to like prove himself to his dad? And what if this person was his first love interest? Because, and that'd be so crazy because he did the same thing in Unravel Me where he tried to get him to kill Juliet, because Anderson tries to kill every girl that distracts him. I hate this. I hate it. I need this book yesterday. I have two things that are sort of an Ignite Me prediction and sort of things that I wish would have happened. My biggest deal is, and I tell everyone this and everyone gets shook about it, like, I think this was the biggest missed opportunity in the entire series. So Warner's mom, she is a beautiful woman who we did not ever get to meet in the series. Chapter 50 ruined my life. Let's just say that. The entire purpose of Warner taking Juliet out of the asylum and getting her to the base was to figure out a cure or to observe Juliet in order to help his mom. That never happened, clearly, because he fell in love with her and his mom died, and then she really couldn't help him with anything because her power was something she could control anyway. All I can think about, two things. First of all, if we don't see a body, she is not dead. I so badly want to write a fan fiction where after, like literally right after Ignite Me, someone comes up to Warner and is like, your mother is on that ship, she's not dead, he just took her. Which would be simultaneously the best and the worst, and the reason why I can't write that is because emotional Warner is not my forte, and I just can't even imagine how that scene would go. But imagine, she's probably still alive somewhere if we didn't see a body, and we didn't see a body. But second of all, Juliet Ferrars could not have helped his mom because she only afflicts other people. And Warner's mom affects herself. Her power is self-inflicted. Adam Kent has the ability to turn off other people's powers. Adam could touch Warner's mom and disable her power and allow her to function. And I think that was the biggest missed opportunity in the entire world. And unless Layla's alive and we get that scene, I'm always going to be bitter about it because it would have been such an amazing scene. And it's so compelling as well because imagine, Warner hates Adam so much and there's such tension between them because they have the same father and because they've done things to it. They've like almost fought each other and Warner almost killed Adam and stuff like that. So it's not like they're the bestest of friends and Warner's like, thank you for doing me this favor, I love you so much. This person he despises is the person that helps him the most or helps his mom the most. And that would be such a cool dynamic that was so unexplored, and I'm angry about it. But just imagine, even though she might not remember Warner and she might be addicted to morphine still, she could have had moments where that pain wasn't afflicting her because Adam could have disabled it. And I'm livid about that. And going off of Adam, I actually do have another thing to say about Adam. Adam has such the potential to have a villain arc. I know we're talking about a Juliet is evil arc, but let's think about it. Adam is the only character in the series who has a chance of overcoming Juliet because he has the ability to disable her power. Sure, Juliet has been training with Warner how to fight like without her power, but she's virtually helpless against anyone if she doesn't have her power of like her super strength that she can hurt people with her touch. If Adam disables her power, he has so much strength over her, and I think that that's a very interesting dynamic if we wanted to explore an Adam as a villain. I know that Reagan told me before Ignite Me came out, she was like, Adam would be such a good candidate to be a bad person in the series because of his power and because he probably has an alliance with Anderson, which turned out not to be true, but that would have been really neat, and that works because he did have a scene where he threatened her and said, you can't do anything to me, like I can disable this. The argument here is he doesn't really have a motive to become evil and to become this spiteful against Julia other than the fact that like she fucked his brother, but whatever. But it's so fascinating to me that that's a possibility, and even if you don't think it's believable, I think it's an interesting direction it might go. Probably not, but keep that in mind. Adam has a lot of power over Juliet because he can disable her power. I think I've pretty much exhausted everything I wanted to say. There's doubtless going to be a part 2 and or part 3 to this video, so oops. I'm only focusing on the short-term things I think might happen after Ignite Me. I have a lot of theories about like the kids that wore net hats and how they're gonna get married and all that stuff, but that's clearly far in the future. Whew, if you made it all the way through this video, thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you're excited for Restore Me. Let me know if you agree with any of these theories or if you have anything to add. Hope you're having a wonderful life. Goodbye.